Look, if the Conservative Party doesn't stand for freedom, then it stands for nothing. And what does freedom mean? It means self-government. And self-government means democracy. John was kind enough to provide me with a one-pager on his reforms, and as you'll know, it deserves a book, and of course John has written a book. Have you got copies of your book around?
You can still get it on Amazon, because I still get royalties.
Well, I do recommend that you get it. Look, we've got a real problem right across this country with too few people being involved in party politics, and that's led to Parliament being able to be out of touch with the public, and I think we can all see that happening. You know, the government's lost control of the House of Commons, and yet we can't get to a general election. And that is a disaster for us constitutionally and as a nation. It's reckless, I would say, now to continue as we are. So we need members of Parliament to vote for a general election. And one of the reasons many will not do so is because they're afraid of losing their seats. So there's several things I want to put to you. You know, John Strafford's calculations are that we need about 500,000 party members to run a general election campaign. Now, Wycombe's membership has been down to 220, it's back up to about 440 now, and it's climbing. Why are they joining? Well, I'm relieved to say not to get rid of their MP, but to support their MP, so I'm really pleased about that. But we've got to find ways to get people in, and it's social reasons, and it's the ability to participate in decision-making. And isn't that the whole point of democracy? So the policy work that we do, I think, is tricky, actually, to go all the way from the grassroots to determine policy, but we need to do much more, nevertheless, to try and conquer some of those tricky problems. But the particular point that I want to make, I would suggest really the main point I want to make today, is that much as I love all of my parliamentary colleagues, and there are some real gems in Parliament, at the moment there is too much of a sense of entitlement amongst Conservative MPs that once they're in post as the MP, once they're the incumbent, that they're almost automatically the candidate for the next general election. Now, of course, you go through the re-adoption process, and I can tell you, as somebody who's been through it three times because of the next one being re-adopted for the next one, you don't take it for granted. And yet, there is generally a sense of entitlement amongst members of Parliament that they'll be the candidate next time. So I'm afraid I think we have to have reforms, not that put members of Parliament on the edge of their seats every time there's a general election coming, but reforms that make it that members of Parliament don't feel entitled to keep staying on. We've got to get to a point where you, the members, are far, far more empowered to say to an MP, actually, it's time for you to return to your professional life, we'd like somebody else. So John has put forward a number of reforms. I'd just like to run through them briefly, if I can find them here. Right, so the Constitution to be altered or approved with a supermajority of 2/3, with one member, one vote, doing it in AGM. I think that is an excellent idea and we should do it. The officers of the party, chairman, treasurer, chairman of the candidates committee, chairman of the policy forum, to be elected by the members. Yes, I agree with that. In particular, the chairmanship of the party. Is it 20 chairmen we've had in 30 years?
Now.
And it's not acceptable that such an important organisation in the life of our country should see such a rapid turnover of chairmen. So I would love to see a member of the voluntary party chairing and elected to do it. Now, obviously, would be tricky for the leader, and I think we'd need to listen very carefully to the leader and to members of the cabinet on what safeguards there should be to ensure the leader was still able to govern. But we do need an elected chair for stability. By the way, there is, of course, far too much of a gap between members of Parliament and the voluntary party. We seem to operate as different castes. But let me tell you, that gap is not as large as the one between members of Parliament and the special advisor class, who would love for us to be obedient to them despite them not standing for election. But I better not get myself into too much trouble. So a democratic election of officers at all levels. John, I agree with that. The leadership rules. Now, you have proposed changing the leadership rules so that MPs nominate candidates with 10% of MPs putting somebody forward for the membership then to choose. Let me tell you, I am in favour of that. And that would be a big change. But And let me tell you, it's got absolutely nothing to do with me being placed in the top 5 twice on the Con Home leadership polls. But I think it's very, very important that our members are able to participate much more directly and actively in who leads our great party and who, therefore, is the Prime Minister. Coalition agreements. I fondly remember in 2010 David Cameron walking in and really presenting us with a fait accompli that we had to have an AV referendum in order to be in power. We didn't even get a vote amongst members of Parliament, still less amongst yourselves. Now, there is a practical difficulty with voting on any coalition agreement, and that is the swiftness with which it would need to be done. So the abominable Fixed Term Parliament Act needs to be repealed, but it's one of the many things where I didn't rebel, I sort of wish I had. But while it's not repealed, we would need to, if we were to introduce this reform on the members voting on a coalition agreement, it would need to be possible to have that poll very, very fast. That means electronically, it means online, but it still means securely. Because you could imagine that in that 14-day window between a first and a second confidence vote, you'd have to form a new coalition agreement and then get it voted on by the members, and potentially then revise it and try again. So the voting would have to be very, very fast. It's probably not compatible with the Fixed Term Parliament Act, another good reason for getting rid of it. Policy officers in every association, absolutely. But I suppose before I approve of absolutely everything John has given me, what I would say with this point of policy, I think this is where we have a real cultural issue in the Conservative Party. You might know the old joke that the Conservative Party is an absolute monarchy moderated by regicide, and the Liberal Party is an absolute democracy moderated by nothing. And we don't want to get into the point that we don't either want to remain an absolute monarchy, nor do we want to become an absolute democracy. But somehow we do need to get policy fed in. But again, speaking as somebody who's now had the privilege of being a minister, and that job I had was an amazing experience because it ranged across so many departments. But let me tell you, the ability of a minister of the government to really direct what policy is going to be is really very constrained by the way the civil service operates and propriety and so forth. So I think any conversation we have about the democratic creation of policy for our party needs very, very careful thinking through with not only experienced ministers but actually also experienced special advisors, so that any proposals we have are practical and it's possible for your vote as a member to actually count and influence policy. Because the last thing I want to do is to go through another cycle of disappointing people. So where I suppose I'll leave this, John, is really once again to say congratulations to you. It's absolutely wonderful the work you've been doing. You've been resolute, you've been patient, but above all, you have been democratic. And when you look at the state our country has fallen into today, there's never been a more important time, I'm quite sure in my lifetime, possibly the lifetime of anyone here, for the work that you have been doing. So I just want to say thank you and congratulations.
To see our future videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon. That way you'll get a notification by email as soon as a new video is available. In the meantime, please do help us out and like and share or retweet this post so your friends and followers can see it too.